Try to write a surah like it. They will tell you it can't be done. You can't do it if you're serious, and you sure can't do it if you're having fun. Not only will you not write a surah like it, you won't kill people to prove Allah is one. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's the poem. This is This Week in Jihad. It has been a while, as somebody here said in the chat. Yes, I have been traveling hither and yon, going about the surface of the earth. Not looking for someone to devour, though. Just doing a lot of work. And David, I see you're on the road this week. So thank you for joining us. We have the great David Wood with us. David, have you heard any jihad happening this week?
No. But, hey, if anyone wonders why I'm not here, my brother, after being locked up 4 years for drugs, is getting parole. And so we have actually made an agreement with the state. The only reason they gave him parole is because he's agreeing to leave and come stick with me. They know I somehow managed to stay squeaky clean afterwards. So they actually let him out and said, okay, get out of this state and go with your brother. So anyway.
Well, that's great.
Good time.
That's a
good time.
That's his jihad.
But anyway. I have to say though, for all the jihadis out there who have been planning and plotting to slaughter me in the name of Allah, when my brother's around, your chances of success drastically go down.
All right. Well, the big news. The big news we have, it's been about a week, but things are moving very quickly in the world today. And so it's still within the week that Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader, was killed in Gaza. Very big story, very big news. But the big thing that I wanted to zero in on about it, David, was about Mr. Sinwar's wife. And you no doubt heard about this. This is Mrs. Sinwar. And she's going through a terror tunnel in Gaza. And what has she got there, David?
Oh, her $32,000 bag?
That's it. Not only is it a $32,000 bag, but my extensive contacts in the high fashion industry tell me that you cannot even buy this bag until you have already spent an additional $32,000 at Hermes. Then they'll let you plunk down another $32,000 for this bag. So this lady has spent at least $64,000 at Hermes for high fashion.
Must be nice.
Well, where do you think the money came from, David?
I don't know. It's just big money in jihad. Makes me want to go become a Hamas leader, and not a Hamas fighter, because those guys all die. But the Hamas leaders, they all become billionaires and so on. So, oh, by the way, Robert, we do have a theory. So,
yes.
They all announced this footage as Yahya Sinwar's wife entering the tunnel. But in the actual video footage, there's like a 6-year-old girl walking in front of that lady. And we're thinking maybe this is grandma. We don't know. Maybe the little girl is the wife. And that's actually like the grandma or something. We can't tell. We just don't know. But there was a little girl in the footage.
Well, that is a ghastly but all too real possibility when you're talking about jihadis. But the thing about the bag, David, I want to talk about the bag a little more. $64,000. Now, the $64,000 question here is, where does the money come from? Where is it that they are able to spend this money for something like this? Well, they've got billions of dollars in humanitarian aid pouring into Gaza. And not only does Yahya Sinwar's wife have a $64,000 bag, a $32,000 bag to be sure, but as I explained, you got to plunk down another $32,000 to get it. Now, not only does she have that, but you take the top 3 Hamas leaders, the late Ismail Haniyeh, Khaled Mashal, and the other guy. What's his name? Oh, getting old here.
Haniyeh? Male Haniyeh?
Haniyeh Mashal. Oh, Musa Abu Marzouk. And they have $11 billion between them. Now, what did they do to make that money? Are they masters of finance? Are they great industrialists? Did they invent a fabulous car? All they did was collect the humanitarian aid money that has been being showered on Gaza for years from the United Nations, the European Union, the United States, and others. And these guys have gotten rich. It's the biggest scam in the world, that they say our people are starving and we need your help. And then they siphon the money off and they are living, buying high fashion bags and living in luxury.
And Yasser Arafat I think he's the one who came up with this brilliant tactic, because he died a billionaire as well. But he wasn't just getting the aid. He would, hey guys, if you want me to keep things quiet on the Palestinian front for your administration, just give me X millions of dollars and I'll keep the jihadis at bay. If you don't give me the millions of dollars, there's going to be a lot of unrest and it'll look really bad for whatever administration or of whatever country you have. And so this guy becomes a billionaire. And then, yeah, the rest of the guys, I don't know if they still take payoffs to keep things quiet or something like that, but you don't need to, because if you were the elected government of Gaza, which Hamas was, then the aid money goes to you and you funnel it to all your leaders. But you're right, it's a complete total scam. Let's keep sending in all this aid money, and these terrorist leaders, they pocket it. Their kids are driving Bugattis around and stuff in various Arab countries, and they're sending people to the front lines. And even this right here, I mean, this was October 6th. They know what was happening. They're going down into tunnels to hide, and very nice tunnels with all the luxuries and amenities down there. But they understand, hey, we just have to go down there. We'll stay there for a few months until Israel gives up. Bunch of other people will die. Eventually, the world will get fed up and pressure Israel to stop. And then we come out of there and we spend our billions of dollars and live like kings and stuff. But it didn't actually work out for them that way this time. Now they're all being killed.
And the thing about it is, the money, we've gotten these constant assurances. The Biden administration, I think Biden himself said, I will make sure that this money better not go to Hamas, when he announced after October 7th, $100 million, now it's up to $1 billion in humanitarian aid for Gaza. And he said, if I find out this money's gone to Hamas, I'm going to be really mad. But he didn't really say that he was going to do anything, because he can't do anything, because the money will go to Hamas, and there's no force in Gaza that can prevent it from going to Hamas. And so...
Yep, just a disastrous situation. Yep. But these guys, looks like it's catching up with them. Looks like it's catching up with their plotting.
Yes, indeed. And so that brings us to your old friend, David.
Oh, what a dirtbag.
Your old pal Andrew Tate. And he said, of course, this week that I can only pray for a death as heroic as Yahya Sinwar's.
Yeah, and so that's Andrew Tate praying for a death as heroic as a man who sent people to carry out a terrorist attack while he took his family to hide underground, spent a year in hiding while other people died, and then got killed because the IDF was closing in on that tunnel, so he had to go find another place to hide, and actually got killed by accident when he was sneaking out for another place to hide. And so that's how Top G himself wants to die. Very heroic, very noble, running from hole to hole like a rat. That's the heroic death that Andrew Tate wants. Sadly, he's going to spend a long time in prison, and he might not get the heroic death that he wants.
Yeah, one thing you got to wonder is, does Andrew Tate mean that he wants to kill 1,200 civilians before and then get killed by the forces that are trying to strike back against him? Does he want to go full jihad here?
No, he's a when it comes to stuff like that, he's a total coward. Like you know, like the Muhammad Hijabs and Ali Dawas of the world who want to praise the jihadis, but would rather live comfortable lives far, far away from any dangerous ground.
Which reminds me of Muhammad saying, "Oh, if it were up to me, I would get killed in jihad every day and die and come back and die and come back." But he never actually got around to it.
No, and then he made the excuse and he goes, "But if I go out to fight, then I'm going to have to leave other people behind, you know, to guard the community, and they're going to be sad if they have to be left behind and not on the front lines with me. So I'll just hang back here and be banging my wives and slave girls while the rest of you guys go out and fight." Here we are, 1400 years later. What are the leaders of jihad doing? They're hanging back, they're hiding, they're living in luxury and so on, while other people go out and die in their place. Muhammad truly is the pattern of conduct.
Yep, the excellent example. All right, speaking of excellent examples, I got another one here. Let's see. This is him. Yep, there he is. That guy. Did you see this guy, David? This is Hujat al-Islam Muhammad Hassan Abu Turabi Fard. Let me see.
You made up that name. Come on. That sounds like a made up jihadi leader name, right?
Well, in the first place, his Hujat al-Islam is his title. And then you got Muhammad Hassan Abu Turabi Fard. That's his name. And anyway, he's obviously Iranian because you can see Ayatollah Khomeini and Khamenei over in the corner. And he preached a Friday sermon in Tehran a few days ago, last Friday, I guess. And he said, martyrs like Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, Ismail Haniyeh, Yahya Sinwar, General Nil Furushan were other mujahids who fought in the way of Allah. And he said that they were a symbol of the high values of Islam, the Quran, the Prophet, and the Ahl al-Bayt, that is the household of Muhammad that the Shiites revere. So isn't that something? That he would say Yahya Sinwar exemplifies the high values of Islam and the Quran. What do you think?
He's exactly correct.
Yep, there you go.
Of course it does. we wouldn't call them high values unless we were high or something like that. But absolutely correct there. You have to wonder though, Robert.
Yep.
Is this guy counting down his days? Because these jihadi guys got a pretty bad track record for the last year of surviving.
Well, he's just a preacher. He's just a Hujat al-Islam, old Muhammad Hassan Abu Turabi Fard.
Okay, you're safe, buddy. But yeah, don't get into politics, pal. Trust me on that one. If anyone contacts you, say, "Hey, we need someone to take over for Hezbollah." Don't do it, bud.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about applying, but there's not a whole lot of job security.
Nope, absolutely none.
Yes, indeed. Okay, let's see. We got funny story out of Israel or Lebanon. You no doubt saw it where General Daniel Hagari, the Israeli IDF spokesman, noted that under a hospital in Beirut, Hezbollah has $500,000 in.
No, he said hundreds of millions.
I'm sorry, not 500,000, 500 million.
That was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life, Robert. Yep. I mean, these guys, like the jihadis, keep trying to be smart, like the Israelis. They keep trying. Like when they tried to attack, like sent the drone to, after Netanyahu's house and stuff, they're trying to be smart, like trying to do this awesome thing where they come across as brilliant, but they always fail when they try to come across as smart. But I mean, think about this. Israel just like blows all their balls off with their own pagers that they wanted. Ha ha! They'll never be able to trace us if we just get pagers, and they get the pagers, and all their nutsacks get blown off. I'm talking like thousands of people got messed up over this. So these guys all get. So you're thinking like, okay, the Israelis, these guys are like mad scientist level genius when it comes to taking out terrorists, and then they're stuck in this situation, and Hezbollah, we've built a base underneath the hospital. The Jews won't get us here because to get to us, they'd have to blow up the hospital, and this will enrage the people of Lebanon, and the people of Lebanon will be on our side against them. And instead of doing anything, the guy just says, hey, everyone, in case anyone's interested, there's a hospital and there's a base underneath, and here's a map. And here's the entrance, and here's the exit. Here's exactly how you can get in there. Oh, and there's hundreds of millions of dollars in cash and gold in there to anyone who should perchance want to go down and collect it. This is mad scientistic. This is mad scientist level again. It's weird, Robert. All those years when the jihadis are always, did you know that the Jews are training lizards to infiltrate us, and the Jews are poisoning our water supply and putting aphrodisiacs in the water to make the girls horny so they go out and commit zina. Did you know this? These Jews. And we're thinking, you guys are nuts, man, thinking Jews are doing all this stuff. But here you see when the Jews actually want to do it, it is that like, whoa, how does anyone think of this stuff? But
yes,
they're good. They're
like
good.
I hear that
really good.
I'm not sure that it's 100% accurate, but I heard a report that Hania was killed. Of course, I mean, there's no doubt about this part, that he was killed in a safe house in Tehran where foreign dignitaries stay. It's like the most secure place in Tehran, maybe outside of Khamenei's house. And the bomb was set there months ago by somebody who was able to determine that Hania always stays in this particular room. And they put it in there. It was completely undetectable by the Iranians, and just waiting for him to go back into the room months later, and boom. That's James Bond level stuff.
Yeah, and you have to. I mean, it's over and over again. We understand it takes a long while for this to sink in, but Muslims, how in the name of common sense do you wake up every morning after seeing this stuff and think Allah's on our side against the Jews? How? If Allah's really on your side, then the Jews are completely, over and over again, outwitting the best of planners and plotters. How is that going on? How is that happening? How is Allah the best of plotters and the Jews are way better?
Yeah, maybe his hand is chained. All right, Nawaz Sharif. That's Nawaz Sharif. He is the former Prime Minister of Pakistan.
No way, that's Cenk Uygur. That's Cenk Uygur, man. I know Cenk Uygur when I see him.
That's Nawaz Sharif. Nawaz says that what we need now is a military alliance of Islamic countries. Israel is flexing muscles because the international powers are behind it. They should think, how long will they test the patience of the Islamic world?
Oh yeah, they need to quit testing us. Oh yeah. They're testing you all right.
So
this is the best testing I've ever seen. It's like testing. Just took out Hezbollah's entire leadership in a couple of days. Testing. Just leveled Gaza to find the terrorists who killed our people and took our hostages. Testing. Been going on for a year. Everything you guys try in response, you get crushed. All you have left, all the jihadis have left, is a bunch of whining college students and a bunch of people who do their best to annoy people. Like, we'll go block traffic. We'll stop traffic for an hour. That'll change the war. These clowns have not saved a single Palestinian in anything they've done. And yet they sit here, so we're warning you. Don't push our buttons. Don't push our buttons, Israel.
Yep. It looks like Israel already pushed the buttons when they blew up the pagers.
Mm-hmm. Pushed a lot of buttons.
Yep. All right, let's go to France, David. We got 2 women who converted to Islam this week in France.
Smart.
And one of them was in Mulhouse, which doesn't sound like a French name to me.
It's pronounced.
Oh, well,
You
that
got to
does
get the
explain
authentic.
it. Yes. All right. Mulhouse, this woman converts to Islam, and she slits her daughter's throat and was taken into custody, hospitalized for being mentally ill. But let me give you some more details about the case, David. This is from the French press, from Actu 17, which is your handle, but it's also a French paper.
French are copying me now.
Yep. And that's it. So the victim's mother, found sitting on the bed mumbling prayers, was arrested. Although French, said the prosecutor, born in France and having studied in France, she refused to communicate in any way other than Arabic. And she had been followed by the intelligence services, obviously not very closely because she was able to slit her daughter's throat, but she had been followed by the intelligence services since 2019 for what the paper says is acts of Islamic radicalization. Jean-Francois Assal specified that the mother
Now you're making up French names, Robert. Come on.
it's right here in the story.
Sorry.
Had
Okay.
specified that the mother had devoted her life to religion. So you got this woman who devoted her life to Islam to such a degree that even though she's French, born in France, raised in France, she won't now speak anything but Arabic. And she slit her daughter's throat. And the French authorities said, oh, she's mentally ill.
Must be.
Why?
Yeah,
What's
I want
the
to.
deal with that?
Yeah, I just want to point out. I mean, you do have people who are actually mentally ill, and they could be any background. They could be an atheist, a Christian, a Muslim, or whatever. And so, if you just had these things really, really occasionally, and it was the same frequency, the same rate as just mental illness in the general population, then you could say, okay, this this Muslim was just crazy. But as you and I have noted, everything seems is a much higher rate of sudden onset jihad syndrome in the world of Islam. In other words, we get lots of people who just decide to go on killing sprees, and over again they say, oh, this person must be crazy, which we've talked about why before. Everyone, including the psychologists and the police and so on, have been bombarded for decades now that Islam is so peaceful and wonderful, you'd have to be an absolute madman to think that it encourages violence. And so when a Muslim goes out and kills a bunch of people or kills a relative or something like that for not living Islamically, then it pops into their head, this person must be crazy. And then, I mean, just imagine if you took this woman to a mental hospital and she's evaluated by a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist is going to say, what do you think Islam teaches? Islam tells me to kill and slaughter the kuffar and blah, blah, blah. Oh, you're clearly insane, because Islam's a religion of peace and tolerance.
There you go. That's it. I think that really does sum it up. They can't admit the truth about Islam, and so the only thing they can do is assume these people are mentally ill. Meanwhile, we have another one. I told you there were 2 converts to Islam. This one is in Nantes. Is that how you probably don't say it that way. That sounds more...
It's pronounced fin, same as the other place.
It's Nantes or whatever you say. But anyway, Nantes. And this is a 23-year-old woman who converted to Islam. And she was also very devout, sleeping at the mosque. She was so devout. And I remember 20-some years ago when I would go into mosques before I was a little bit better known, and people would often be, I would see often people sleeping there, staying there. It's a matter of, it's considered to be a matter of hospitality that the mosque is open for that kind of thing. And sometimes the
Well,
especially
also Robert, someone needs to keep an eye on all the weapons that they
sometimes
store in the
the
mosque.
especially devout, they try to pray all night in the mosque and so on. But anyway, what this woman did was ultimately she stabbed her father because he was supposedly preventing her from wearing the veil and dressing as a Muslim woman. I don't know how he was preventing her. She was 23. He probably just objected verbally, but in any case, he was stabbed for his trouble.
That's what you get.
Meanwhile, that's what you get. Meanwhile, do you remember? I think we talked about. I'm sure we must have talked about this story. This is the fellow in Oklahoma City, Tawhidi, Nasir Ahmed Tawhidi, who was arrested not long ago for a jihad plot on election day. He was supposedly going to carry out a jihad massacre on election day and was stopped. He's a Muslim migrant from Afghanistan. And it's interesting to note that there's so much skepticism and distrust regarding the U.S. government nowadays that I saw lots of people saying, oh, this is fake. They just want to keep people away from the polls. They want to keep people from voting, make them do mail-in voting, something like that. And I actually thought, well, that's plausible because I don't put it past the intelligence agencies that are so corrupt these days to do something like that. But interesting sidelight to the story comes this week. 22-year-old man, the years younger brother of Nasir Ahmed Tawhidi, who's 27, he was arrested in France last Saturday with a plan for violent action at a football match, that is soccer, of course, or shopping center, as reported by the Anti-Terrorism Prosecutor's Office in Paris. He had plans to blow up people in a large crowd, obviously trying to maximize the terror. So do you think these guys might have been raised in a family where jihad was valued?
No, they just randomly went crazy, like so many others.
Yes, they misunderstood Islam in precisely the same way, in the same family, with the same result. Astonishing.
It's weird. It's weird how so many people get the mental illness that has the exact same symptoms.
It is. It's astonishing how often that happens.
All right, it needs to be in the DSM-6, Robert, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Illnesses. They need to go ahead and put it in there. Sudden onset jihad syndrome.
It definitely does, especially since governments and some of the most respected governments in the Western world are routinely classifying jihad activity as mental illness. Well, they ought to back it up then and make it an actual classification of mental illness, and then we could have jihadi hospitals that are just entirely filled with jihad terrorists and appropriately secure, and the actual mentally ill could be housed elsewhere for their own protection. The mentally ill in other ways, folks. All right, we got Nigeria, the Gwoza area of Borno State in northeast Nigeria. Boko Haram, which means books are bad, books are forbidden, but specifically that is Western education. Boko Haram means don't get a Western education, just read your Quran. Boko Haram says they released a video, rather, depicting themselves beheading 4 people whom they recently abducted. And they took their captives. They had 7 captives, 2 men and 5 women. And they paraded them before the cameras and then beheaded 4 of them. Among the victims, says a report from Human Angle, which is a Nigerian source, among the victims was a young woman in her mid-20s, identified by one of the executioners as the daughter of his elder brother, Yahya Diko. In a shocking display of cold-heartedness, he said, "We do not share the same faith with her," before participating in her execution. We do not share the same faith as her. That's why they killed her. A lot of implications to that, are there not?
Muhammad said, I've been commanded to fight people until they say there's no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. And if they do it, then their blood and property are protected on my behalf.
And so if they don't do it, their blood and property are not protected. And
that is correct, sir.
Solely for not sharing the Islamic faith, this woman was killed. And the guy makes no secret of that. He has no trouble avowing that.
Well, Robert, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm sure some Western politicians will gladly take all these guys who are killing people in the name of Allah and release them into the streets of major Western cities.
Yeah, that'll solve everything. That's going to be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you let them in. You show how you bend over backwards for them. Their hearts will melt, and they will embrace peace, tolerance, and secular Western liberal values. That's the theory.
There'll be no more jihad. It'll be all over. We've seen it happen, have we not? I mean, there's no jihad in the West.
Correct.
And especially not for many migrants, like Nasir Ahmed Tawhidi. All right, Somalia. We had our friends from Somalia, your friends from Somalia, my friends as well, visiting last week. I hope they are well. I don't guess they're with you there where you are now, are they?
Nope. They headed back.
Got a real story from Somalia this week, and that is actually about a convert to Christianity. So it's interesting because last week I asked the Somali Christians if there were a lot of Christians in Somalia itself. And they said there were some, but mostly it's in the Somalis who live outside of Somalia, because if you are in Somalia, you'll be immediately killed if you convert. And sure enough, this is a story about a man named Muhammad Abdul, who actually has now been attacked 3 times by his Muslim relatives, but they have not yet managed to kill him yet. And they showed up most recently. He was leading worship at his home, which is in a secret place. But 4 of his relatives showed up, waited for him outside. When he went outside, he was surprised to see them, and they said, "Why are you worshiping differently from the Muslim way? Why do you close yourself in the room when you're praying?" And then they hit him with a blunt object. A 3rd relative slapped his face. They fractured his left hand, injured the fingers of his right hand, cut his face, and he said they left him bleeding. And one of them said, since you love God, may he lead you to the right path, as they were leaving, which is an odd way to finish off after you've just roughed somebody up.
Fortunately, Robert, our leaders have a plan in place for situations like this. They will solve this problem by taking all the people who want to rough this guy up and eventually kill him and bring them to Western nations and release them into modern Western cities. That's, in case you haven't noticed, that is the solution for everything that goes wrong in the Muslim world. Take all the people who want to kill and slaughter and do violence against other people because they're following the wrong religion, and just bring them and put them in the streets of Western nations to guaranteed
Brilliant.
success.
They'll become congresswomen from Minnesota. It's going to be great. All right, we got a couple of interesting stories out of Afghanistan. And one of them actually has to do with the rough and wild border between Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. And
thought you were going to say Pakistan, because that's a rough border too.
Yeah, but you would think actually that Uzbekistan would be quieter, because Uzbekistan was a Soviet republic for many years, and the Islam there was depoliticized but it's still got.
Yeah, you would think that. It's kind of weird. It's almost like just once you go full jihad and full Sharia, you just can't get along with anyone. You can't get along with anyone who's close to you. Even if it's a
That's
Muslim
right.
nation, they're not following it entirely correctly according to you, and therefore it's endless problems.
That's exactly what the story is about. Maybe you saw it.
Nope.
The Uzbeks. There's this. The Uzbeks set up this. They have okay. The town is called Eretom. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. It's Aritom. Eretom, and it's on the border between Uzbekistan and Afghanistan. An Uzbek town, and the Uzbeks have set up what they call the Eretom Free Economic Zone, or FEZ, and it's a it's a happening place in Central Asia where there is music, there's dancing, there's concerts, and there's a 36-acre tax-free zone. So a lot of Afghans are going over to the Fez to let their hair down and party and relax a little bit. And so the Taliban government in Kabul is enraged. And they say, you have got to ban, they told the Uzbeks, you've got to ban music in the Eretom Free Economic Zone, or we're going to ban Afghans from going there at all. Now, what's the deal with the music, David?
Music is haram, Robert. Come on, everybody
Music
knows
is
that.
Islam, but Islam is a
Hmm.
religion of peace and love and tolerance, right? So surely the Uzbek Fez ought to be a place where Islam reaches its full flowering, its full beauty.
Yeah, you would think that, Robert, but there are just this constant supply of misunderstanders of Islam, like the Taliban. You've got an entire group, and they all misunderstand Islam in exactly the same way. But Robert, I don't mean to keep beating a drum here, but there's an easy way to
This
solve this
music is
problem.
forbidden.
Just bring the Taliban, just bring the entire Taliban to Western nations and let them go in the streets of major Western cities. I can't. It's so simple. It's so simple. That's what our leaders want to do, and they do it in smaller quantities. But just if you think it works, go all out. Just go all out. Just take the entire Taliban, release them into London and New York and so on, and Minneapolis, of course. And what could possibly go wrong?
What indeed? It'll be paradise. And actually, that's already happening. There are many, many thousands of Afghans who are here in the United States since the fall of Kabul in August 2021. Meanwhile, speaking of the music ban in Afghanistan, the Taliban announced that it has, over the past year, destroyed 20,000 musical instruments in Afghanistan. And they're very happy about that.
Yeah, it's probably like they probably have like a website. It's like porn to them when they're not watching like animal porn and stuff like that. But they probably have like a site where you use it's like OnlyFans, but it's like you go on there and just like watch people like violin, look at me smashing it, ha ha. And they're all
Well,
like watching
actually,
going, ooh.
I think that's actually very likely because, after all, we've seen so many stories of jihadis filming their murders because they
Mhm.
want to distribute the films in order to entertain and encourage other jihadis.
And even ISIS when they were like destroying artifacts in museums and stuff like that in areas they conquered and stuff, destroying artifacts that you can't replace at all. And they're destroying them, and but they're filming it all and posting it online to encourage everyone.
Yep. And so this is the kind of thing they like. They love this. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, in the aptly named Swat Valley, we had a terrible story. A woman was in a bad marriage and was being beaten by her husband, which, of course, in Pakistan just means do better, try to please your husband more ardently so that you don't get beaten. But in any case, she had had enough, and she actually fled to her father asking him for refuge. And then her husband and her brothers, not the husband's brothers, then murdered her because she had dared to seek refuge from the father from his domestic violence.
And
What's that all about?
Yeah, we pointed out before that you can have, culturally, you can have a thing called honor killings from various backgrounds and so on, but becomes the reason it's the practice is so overrepresented in Islam is it's extremely easy to justify according to Islam because you have passages of the Quran like Surah 4 verse 65, which if you are not fully submitting to all of Muhammad's decisions in every way, then you are not a real Muslim. So if you're a wife and you don't respect your husband who's beating you or something like that, or you're getting out of line or something like that, you're not doing what you're supposed to. And it becomes very easy to say, hey, we're putting you in the apostate category because you're not fully submitting to everything Muhammad said. And then, of course, you have Muhammad saying in Sunan ibn Majah that Muslims should carry out Allah's penalties even against their own family members and so on. So it's basically you have a cultural practice in certain areas of honor killings, but then Islam moves in there and then provides the justification from Allah, the creator of the universe.
There you go. And so, unfortunately, these things are all too common. Interesting story in terms of Islamic theology, and that comes from our friend Tariq As-Suwaidan, who is, of course, a Muslim Brotherhood leader out of Kuwait, an Islamic scholar, and let's see, I had a picture of him, but rather than just try to find it, I thought that I would get to the story here. I thought this is very interesting, David. He says he's talking about Sharia, and he's talking about those main objectives of Sharia, preserving religion, life, lineage, intellect, and property. And he says, which one of these objectives has higher priority? It is preserving religion, not preserving life. That is why there is a thing called jihad. If preserving life had the priority, there would be no jihad. We would abolish it. Preserving religion takes priority over preserving life.
But wait, it's just weird that he's connecting that to jihad and concluding that jihad means people are going to die. It's so weird because, Robert, you know as well as I that jihad is simply, getting to the gym, given your difficult schedule, or getting your kids to school on time, or building bridges across the aisle, becoming friends. That's what we saw. That's what jihad is. At least that's what Muslim organizations in the West told us with their with their what was it? Their that's jihad. My jihad campaign. Yep. Yeah, I was thinking of the Why Islam campaign. That was a separate one.
So yeah, preserving life. If preserving life had the priority, there would be no jihad. We would abolish it. And I think it's noteworthy that this guy is not some random nut. He's a very respected Islamic scholar internationally. And nobody's rising up and saying, you misunderstand jihad. Least of all the Council on American Islamic Relations that ran that My Jihad campaign. They're not saying a word to Tariq As-Suwaidan.
Yeah, they never seem to have a problem with the actual jihadis. They just have a problem with us when we point out the jihadis and what motivates them. That's when CAIR suddenly takes an interest in what we're saying, but never what these guys are saying.
Yep. You'd think that if they really cared that people thought jihad was spiritual, they'd be all over Tariq As-Suwaidan right now and trying to teach him how he's misunderstanding Islam.
Yeah, it's weird. It's, if I didn't know better, which I don't, I might think that behind the scenes, CAIR actually wants jihad and values it and champions it.
Oh, could be.
And that their real goal is just to keep us quiet while the jihadis pick us off.
That's it, man. You hit the nail on the head. All right, this is Ruby Begum. You probably heard about Ruby, right?
I recall the picture, but yeah, I don't remember.
Well, she is a cop. She's with the London Metropolitan Police. And so she's got her hijab there, but she's with her police colleagues. She's in her police uniform. You can't see it entirely in the picture, but she's been in a bit of hot water because it turns out that she's got an extensive social media history where she talks about dirty Zionists.
Weird.
She complained that her police colleagues had been using her mug when it wasn't her shift, and she would come in and it had been used. And she said, "Kufar lips have been all over my mug. There's no way I'm using that thing again." And what is that all about? Did she think the Kufar are unclean or something?
Oh yeah, that's actually I forget the exact thing, but yeah, you have to wash things a certain number of times if like
Yep.
Jews or Christians have touched it and stuff like that. And yeah,
Yep. It's based on chapter 9, verse 28 of the Quran. Lo, the infidels are unclean. And yes, you have to do special washings of material that they have touched. So she's grossed out by the Kufar using her mug. Anyway, she's
yeah,
supposed to be a police officer here for
yeah,
everybody.
yeah. Yeah, you definitely want someone like that in charge of public safety and stuff, and securing the public trust. It's funny, Robert, when you said she's accusing people of using her mug. I thought you were going in a different direction with that. They're talking about her face. You know, they talk about person's mug, and it means face. And I was like,
Yeah,
what
I'm
are they
using her
doing?
mug right here. There you go.
Yeah, since she's not covering her face, are they like
Yep.
posting pictures of her face and I don't know, whacking off or something? That's
Yikes.
what actors like. Where's he going with this stuff about her mug? How are people using her mug? What? And they're like, oh, he means a mug you drink out of. Oh, okay, all right. I thought this was going in a much darker direction, Robert.
Yes. Well, looks like we're already there. All right. I got more stupid infidels, though. I just think it's stupid that she's a police officer when she obviously does not have respect for the non-Muslim population. And so
Well,
how
it's
could
just a
she
weird
be?
situation because you have 551. Don't take the Jews and Christians as awliya,
Mhm.
and there are different translations of that because it's a broader concept that includes multiple meanings and so on. But some translators translate it as friends and so on. But some will say, oh, don't take them as allies or protectors. Like, well, what do you
Yep.
call joining a police force? What do you call joining a police force with a bunch of non-Muslims? That would seem to be taking them as allies, and then you have people wanting to translate as protectors, and it's like, well, according to you, then long term, you can't have Christian or Jewish or whatever protectors like police officers, so they eventually have to be completely wiped out and replaced with jihadis who are going to do just a bang up job of protecting the citizens of the country.
And that's what justifies her being there, that she's part of the Islamization of the force.
Yep, got to
And
take it
so
over.
that that's the overriding thing over 551, if 551 applies at all. Anyway, this is Mona. I don't know how to say her last name. Kaiser, something like that. It's K. Where I had it just here. Yeah, Keijzer, and she is the Deputy Prime Minister of the Netherlands. Mona Kaiser, or something like that. Anyway, she is in hot water, or was in hot water. A Dutch jurist, Dutch prosecutors, said that she was guilty of incitement to intolerance that contradicts the foundations of democracy. Because she said, and I quote, this is Mona Kaiser, "What you see is that many asylum seekers come from countries with Muslim faith. We know that Jew hatred there is a part almost of the culture." And for that, she's being accused of hate crime
Hmm.
and incitement to hatred. Incitement to intolerance, rather, which is a felony in the Netherlands. It looks like they're not going to prosecute, but the prosecutors have said that she's guilty of this.
Well, multiple levels of stupidity and insanity here, Robert. She could
Yes.
prove that what she's saying is absolutely indisputably correct just by citing some statistics on Jew hatred in Muslim nations. But that doesn't seem to come. They don't go after you because you're saying something false It's you're not allowed to say something true. That's the rule. You can't say it. Doesn't matter if it's true. It's like when they would charge what is it, Sabadish Wolf or something like that with
Elizabeth Sabadish Wolf, yeah.
Yeah, for saying Muhammad was a pedophile when he had sex with a prepubescent 9-year-old girl, which is the definition of a pedophile. It is like the clinical definition of someone with pedophilic disorder. And so they're not charging these people or going after these people or accusing these people of saying something that's false. It's you're saying something that even if it's true, you're just not allowed to say it. But so that's one level of insanity. You can no longer say true things. And what she was saying was, so the reason that's so important is you have all these European nations that are so still guilt-ridden over the Holocaust that they think you can't object to you're not allowed to object to doing certain things, or it means you're a Nazi. It's like, okay, what are you guys doing? We're bringing in tons of people who hate Jews. Wait, that's what you do in response to your guilt over the Holocaust? You bring in a bunch of people who want to exterminate Jews? That's your brilliant, that's your atonement, you morons, right? So it's built into the thinking that you just can't object to bringing in tons and tons of people who absolutely hate and despise Jews and who are obviously going to increase their actions against Jews as they've been doing. You can look at the statistics on anti-Semitic hate crimes. They're going through the roof. They've always been high, but they're going through the roof now. And so hey guys, maybe we need to be aware if somehow you're feeling guilty over the Holocaust and this is why you think you need to bring in all these people, maybe get your mind around the idea that a bunch of these guys hate Jews. And so, no, you can't do that. That's actually a crime. But the insane part is, if you took this seriously, this stirring up intolerance is a hate crime. What do you do with the hour will not come until the Muslims fight the Jews and the Jews hide behind the rocks and trees and the rocks and trees cry out, "Oh Muslim, there's a Jew hiding behind me, come and kill him." What do you do with Jews and Christians are the worst of creatures? What do you do with fight those who do not believe in Allah? What do you do with Jews and polytheists are the most vehement in hostility towards the true believers? What do you do with all these passages? And it's just insane because if anything were going to be promoting intolerance, it would be the Quran and the other Muslim sources. And yet you're not allowed to criticize what's in those sources. You're not allowed to say, hey, that is intolerant, because if you say that's intolerant, they'll say you're intolerant and we're going to have to lock you up over this. Mm-hmm. It's insane. Like people have gone completely nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another good segue, David, because we got, so many stories of people gone completely nuts. This is a, whoops.
Hey, Robert, little side note. Yeah. Unto the Lord is asking if he has permission to repost these videos.
Absolutely. Wherever you want, Unto. Anyway.
Yeah, and little side note, if someone wants to do it, one easy way to go about things is, in an episode of This Week in Jihad, Robert will go through multiple stories. Just download the video, chop it up, and put it make it individual little stories, like on Twitter or something like that.
Good idea.
Matter of fact, if you want to do a real bang up job and you've got some time, make a channel. Call your channel This Week in Jihad. You download the show. You chop it up into the individual stories, and then you go to Jihad Watch and you find the story, because Robert takes the stories from Jihad Watch and we cover them here. But then you can actually link to the article on Jihad Watch, and that's a good little. People want to get started on social media and stuff and aren't sure what to do. Very, very, very simple way to go about things, and would probably do well if you keep it up.
That would be massive. Anybody wants to do that, I will give you a hearty handshake. All right, this is like a 20-year-old photo, David. This is not a recent photo. I'm sure you've seen it. It's a very famous photo of a hijabbed TSA agent patting down a nun in full habit at an airport. And I post that picture now because the TSA has just given a prestigious service award to the Council on American Islamic Relations for providing valuable input to the TSA on the experiences of Muslim travelers with TSA screening.
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem here? That's a beautiful thing, is it not? And a little heartwarming story.
Oh yeah, that's awesome, Robert. I mean, think the reason we have the TSA screening, Robert,
Yes.
I have to say, the reason we have, because you remember, Robert, you remember when you could just show up 10 minutes before your flight left and so on, bolt
Oh
right
yeah.
through there. You had to run through a metal detector and stuff like that, but it was a real quick process. Now they give you these full body scans and so on. The reason all that changed was because Muslims kept doing stuff on planes and then trying to blow them, hijacking them, trying to blow them up. You had the underwear bomber and the foot bomb, the shoe bomber, all those bombers and so on. Anyway, everyone wants to blow up the planes and take down the planes and fly the planes into buildings. And so they end up doing all these security measures. But you have like the Council on American Islamic Relations constantly complaining, oh, but this violates our Islamic principles. And so they want them to have a free pass where they don't have to go through this security measure. And the rest of us do.
Yep.
Even though they're the reason we have all the security measures, but they're the ones who are supposed to be exempt from these security measures.
I remember.
Last story, I just said how insane everything is, but this is just endless.
Yeah, the insanity just never ends. I remember back in 2001 or two, very, very long ago, and I didn't have all the Quran verses memorized like now, so I had a bunch of notes in my jacket pocket right here. And I was late for the airplane. So I'm hurrying through the scanners. It was after 9/11, and they had put in all the new, but it was very new stuff. And my notes fell out. I didn't even notice. And I went onto the gate, and in a few minutes I'm surrounded by these huge German shepherds and all these cops because they found these papers with, kill them wherever you find them.
Yeah.
And all this stuff written on it.
Hey, Robert, something. Oh, go ahead.
But the thing is that if I had been a Muslim and had that, maybe, my daily devotional or whatever, that would have been a big story for CARE about discrimination against Muslims. But it was completely understandable to me, and I explained the situation, and eventually they let me go. But this is the kind of thing that CARE makes a big case out of, that they try to claim that Muslims are being discriminated against.
Yeah, and Robert, I have a similar story. This was at JFK International Airport, and I was in there, and I was heading to the UK for some debates. One of them was on whether Islam's a religion of peace, and I had a Quran, and I had a copy of, I don't remember which article it was, but it was one of your articles. This is a long time ago. It was like 2008 or something like that. But I had one of your articles printed out, and I had my little carry-on there, just sitting in the airport waiting for the plane, and I was using it like a little desk, and I had a Quran on there and this article on jihad, and then someone called me, and I started answering the phone, and I start sort of wandering about, and I see this lady running with her kids, and I see people swarming in, and then everyone's scattered. All the people who were sitting there were scattering. And then I'm like, what's going on over there? What's going on? Oh no. And I have to go over there, and they're all like backed up. They're like, is this your bag? I'm like, yeah, that's my bag. And then they're like, oh, big guy doesn't look like a Muslim here. And anyway, they warned me not to leave my stuff unattended.
Yes. Oh my goodness. All right. Meanwhile, in the middle of all this insanity, I believe the last time we did the show, we talked about the hate crime statistics out of the FBI. Yeah, we certainly did. And you remember that anti-Semitic hate crimes were the most common, most frequent, and the anti-Muslim hate crimes, of course, there shouldn't be any of either, but the anti-Muslim hate crimes were number 8, way down on the list, just a small number of them, and nonetheless, we have the President of the United States and so many other people talking about anti-Semitism and Islamophobia as if both have skyrocketed. And I just wanted to give you a little update on that, and that is that after those hate crime statistics came out, the Biden administration announced a new initiative to fight Islamophobia.
Finally, good. Someone had to do it, Robert.
Didn't mention anti-Semitism at all. Meanwhile, yes.
Oh, I just wanted to point out for the 47,000th time. It would be one thing if, their new Bureau of Combating Islamophobia or whatever they do was actually about going after people for hate crimes against Muslims. If they had some if they had some branch, just like, hey, if there's hate crimes against Muslims, we go in to investigate. No problem. But you know as well as I that they come up with this. We need to combat Islamophobia, and people go, "Oh yeah, that's good." And then how it actually gets used. Anyone who criticizes Islam or Muhammad in any way is guilty of Islamophobia. So it's ultimately meant for people like us, not for people who are going around killing Muslims or something.
And it actively is meant to shut us down. We will see how that works out. That's been working on that for years. I mean, that's already why this channel is demonetized and all that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, just one more before we go. David, there was a moment of silence in schools in France last week for two teachers, Samuel Paty and Dominique Bernard, who were both killed by Islamic jihadis. And the moment of silence that took place was disrupted in 3 schools.
Shocker.
By Muslim students screaming Allahu Akbar in the middle of the minute of silence. And I thought, well, there you go. That sort of sums up the situation we're in.
Sums up very well. And there's always this part of me that says, you guys literally asked for this. You literally asked for it despite the warnings, and you attacked everyone who told you exactly what was going to happen. And so now you get what you deserve. But the other part is like, okay, but there are all these people who didn't want it, and they have to suffer the consequences. Because at the end of the day, all the politicians and so on who make these decisions, they're living comfortable, safe lives in wealthy neighborhoods where they don't have to deal with this. It's the regular people that have to suffer for it.
That's right. And we hope it's not you, ladies and gentlemen, but we are back here, maybe next week, maybe next year. But in any case, where there is jihad, there we will be. And until then, pray, hope, and don't worry.